Okay, you've done your pre-trip inspection. You're ready to go ride. You've either arrived or you were already there, waking up the next morning, and you're going to go take a big long trip up in the mountains. We meet a lot of people on the trails that you know, 2 or 3 people that either come from an area where winches weren't needed or that kind of thing, and they get up on like a trail that's kind of that they don't have the equipment for. One of those pieces of equipment is a winch. So I highly recommend that either everybody has a winch or at least one person in the group has a winch, especially if you plan on getting off any of the bunny trails. A winch is kind of indispensable if you're needing to move or reposition a machine. Now you can do it with another unit, but a lot of times on these trails there's nowhere to put another unit. You end up having to, you know, do snatch blocks and a lot of complicated things sometimes just to get a machine slid over or get the machine unstuck. The first thing you want to do, and this has happened time and time again, a lot of folks will jump in their machine, crank it up, and really push it hard without letting the machine warm up. And the most important thing to get warmed up is your belt and clutch. My 800S, I was typically getting at least 2,500 miles on a belt. I never had a belt fail on me. I just replaced it, you know, during maintenance inspection. It would start getting cracking, or you could see glazing or something like that. So, and the way that I've been able to do that is just taking care of the belt system and understanding how it works. So when you get to the trail system, you know, crank your machine up, just do a little warm-up riding around. Don't really get on it really hard. It's really simple. I mean, it's a rubber belt, and if you're causing it to slip, that generates heat, plus it takes some of the material off and weakens the belt. And the more you do that, the faster the belt's going to wear out. You know, again, make sure that before you leave the trailhead that you have tires that are in working order, any spare parts you may need. I always carry 2 belts on the machine. You know, it's not uncommon to see up underneath here, usually they'll tie strap a set of belts up underneath the roof. That's a common place for them to be stored. If you plan on getting anywhere close to night, make sure that you have lighting. Headlamps is generally what I use, plus I have rock lights and LED bar. If you're riding at night, headlights generally don't cut it in the mountains. They project directly in front of the machine. They really don't have a lot of broadcast out, and they don't go out that far. And if you're, especially if you're traveling at high speed on gravel in the mountains, or you're actually off-road, you know, up in some rock garden somewhere, generally those trails aren't straight, so you want as much light as you can get. One thing is the rock lights. This is my second set of rock lights on this machine. And they're pretty much indispensable, just not just from being able to get around, but just a safety thing. If you've ever been in one of these RZRs at night and had the headlights on, there is no light to the sides when you get out. And if you're trying to get out of the machine in a rock garden to look off the side to see what you're about to run over, you're not going to see it. It's pretty dark. So lighting is really important at night. You know, definitely for your spotters, they need to have headlamps or some kind of lighting. You really don't want to see people walking around with no light, tripping and falling, you know, through rocks, or, you know, trying to carry their $1,000 cell phone as a flashlight and busting on the rocks. A couple other things you'll want to keep on board. I have a set of push pin pliers, and I keep those in a glove box where they're readily available. These are super inexpensive. You can pick them up on Amazon, eBay, or at the auto parts store. And basically all they are is for all the thousands of push pins that are there. Now obviously you need a toolkit, which I have in the back. Another thing to have is something to remove the clutch cover with. And that's the best thing to use. I think I've had it in other videos, but it's basically just a hose clamp, flexible screwdriver. So it's basically a flexible screwdriver with the correct bit on the end that fits not only the bolts, but it also fits the hold down clamp for the vent cover on the back of the machine. Because inevitably you or someone else in your group is going to need to change a belt at some point while you're on the trail. So you need to have tools. I've got pretty much a full tool set, and those are just the basics. You know, go out. I know a lot of times when we run out, we'll just discuss as a group. I know a lot of folks don't really like to carry everything on the RZR because it's a lot of weight and a lot of stuff to load. But as a group, if you can kind of decide, you know, so-and-so's taking this, so-and-so's taking this, and just make sure your bases are covered. That'll make your trip a lot more fun. That's probably some of the most fun that we've had is, you know, if something breaks down on the trail and that you know you can fix it, it's kind of a fun day, you know, making a repair and getting back on the trail. If you're out there and you can't fix it because you didn't bring something, it gets very frustrating, and it may, you know, ruin the whole trip. Anyway, that's my recommendations on, you know, when you first get to the trail, those are the things you want to have. And this, you know, mainly my experience is, you know, really rugged trails, gravel roads, trails, you know, in kind of the western North Carolina, eastern Tennessee area, which are relatively rough compared to other places I've went, especially further down south where it's flat, or further north where you know, you're dealing with foothills and not large mountains. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about just general operations while you're out on the trail. Probably the one most misunderstood thing and the simplest rule that I can think of to prevent it is CVT clutch operation. I see a lot of guys that will, you know, they're mashing the throttle and the motor's revved up, but the RZR is not moving. Anytime that you're mashing the throttle and the RZR is not moving, you're doing it wrong. You want to get used to mashing that throttle, getting full engagement, and either moving, spinning, or, you know, stop and come up with another plan. Sitting there on a rock and just melting your belt is not gonna work out very well for you. And it may not get you that day, but it's going to cause a belt failure in the future. And the best way I know to describe it, if you're sitting in the RZR and if you're on flat ground, obviously you don't really want to super ease into it. You actually want to kind of, you know, mash the throttle a little bit and get it started and get it moving. Once you're moving, the belt's engaged and you know, you have engine braking. What you don't want to do is hesitate and maybe just kind of cover the throttle just a little bit, and definitely never use it as a brake. If you're in some really rocky terrain, I know a lot of folks are really scared of fracturing an axle, and they're very light on the pedal. You really need to practice while you're on rocks, kind of giving it that little, whoa, the radio shut off, kind of giving it that little bit of extra oomph right at the start, just to get a good clutch engagement. And you know, don't let the wheels stop turning with you mashing the fuel, because you're just spinning against the belt. It's like I say, if you watch through the numerous CVT operation videos, you can kind of see what's happening anytime that you're mashing the fuel and the tires aren't moving. Basically, the belt and your secondary is staying still, and your primary is just wallowing out your belt. Back this on. I'll do a quick demonstration of it, kind of show you what I'm talking about, both in level and going up a little bit steeper grade here in just a little bit. Okay, this is kind of, you know, what's in your box kind of thing. Like I was saying before, this is my rear box, and this is how I keep all the items that are in it. You know, spare belt, toe straps. Can't have enough toe straps. I usually use the 2-inch ones. It's kind of a user preference. I'll show you here in a little bit why I use the 2-inch ones. Is the magic tool. If you kind of notice, I'll put a link to this from Amazon. but I've basically just taped this together so that I don't lose this. This is a clutch tool. This will get all of the bolts out of the clutch. I have the main Torx bit that I use, just handy and free. A very important thing to have, if you have the valve stems to do it with, is a valve stem remover. What this is designed to do is you screw this on the valve stem and you can pry it out of the rim, and you can also install one with this. So for those guys out there that have ever just lost a valve stem, this is the tool that you can easily get it out and put it back in. Super cheap, and it doesn't take up a lot of space. Any kind of light will do. I really like the LEDs because they last a long time. And these are alkaline powered. For those of y'all that don't know, alkaline batteries, they have really good storage typically. So you can leave this in a RZR. Pretty much I've probably had this in there since I bought the RZR, about 2 years. Never replaced the battery. It's always performed well, and I also have spare batteries. This is the magic sauce for your electrical system. This is basically dielectric grease. So any connector that you have that you don't want all the mud and dirt and everything to really affect or get into, this is ideal. I use this on all the connectors that I have on the machine, and it hasn't failed me yet. I have just a really basic first aid kit. Radio programming, basic tools. And here's one of the most important things to have. Tons and tons of tire plugs, patches. I have a chainsaw tool in here, file. This is mainly just for the valve itself and the valve stem. Now I've got a pack of push pins, tons of tie straps. This is one of those fancy dancy tire pressure gauges for an ATV. I really like this one. It works really well. And one of the most important things you can have, some valve stems. Make sure that you get the right size for the rims that you have. Another very important thing to have is some electrical tape. And again, those are Frog Dog. That's probably the best rain gear that I've found. It's easy to get cleaned up. You won't get wet at all, and it's a lot better than the nanner suits that I used to have. It used to be just a yellow poncho that was long, and it got wet and let the water go down in between the cracks, and it just didn't fit really well. This stuff is basically like a pair of pants and a jacket that you put on. It works really well. These are basically small, I think they're actually axle straps. They make better tree straps that are totally nylon. I just had these for a really long time and got used to using them. This is typically what I'm either putting around a tree, or a lot of times on a RZR you have nowhere to really connect to, and I use these to actually connect to the RZR. I have a small SOG. This is actually a shovel digging tool, relatively small. And then I've got one of these mesh bags that has my hardware in it. And if I'm doing really rough stuff, I have another. Basically, I keep 2 sheaves and a ton of shackles, just to make things quicker. Because typically, if you hit a trail that's really bad, it's not just one time that you're having to pull something out. You're basically developing a little train system where you're trying to get everybody up the trail safely. And this really helps, and basically everybody kind of in the group, if they've got a little bit of kit, you kind of put it all together and you end up with one big system.